Hello everyone! So I wanted to come on here and make a video talking about astrology and how to read your birth chart and all of that because I feel like a lot of people overcomplicate it and it's not actually that bad once you get the basics of it. I also wanted to explain it in a way that worked best for me when I was learning because there's so many different videos out there and different explanations and it can be kind of overwhelming when you're starting. So as long as this helps one person, then I'm happy, but this was the way that worked for me, so. And if you want to follow along while I explain things and compare it to your chart as you learn to read it, just look up free birth chart calculator online. I use a site called Astromatrix. Some people use this site called AstroSeek. Whichever one you like more is perfectly fine. Okay, so whenever you want to look up your birth chart, if you already know how to find it and whatever, that's fine. You can skip this part. But I'm gonna use the example Astromatrix just because that's the site that I use. So if you search Astromatrix login, this second link here that says the login, you click there, you just make an account, you input your date of birth, your time, your email. I don't really think that they send any emails or anything, so don't worry about that. But then you go over to chart and you're gonna wanna click this part that says, for you it'll say birth under your time, and then you want to click the transit one. That's the one that we're going to be following today. So yeah, once you first actually see your chart, you're gonna see a circle with a bunch of random numbers, symbols, lines, like all this stuff, and you're gonna be like, what the actual heck am I looking at? And don't worry, we're gonna break it down piece by piece and I'll explain it so you're good. So what actually is a birth chart? Your birth chart is basically a screenshot of the sky at the exact moment that you were born. So that circle that you see has all the planets and lots of different things that I will get to, but when you first look at it, imagine that you're standing in the middle of that circle and all the planets are moving around the circle around you, and once you're born, it just clicks and takes a picture of where they were at that exact moment. But the planets, however, keep moving. So the birth chart that you have never changes because that's just where the planets were when you were born. But even right now, the planets are in different places. So before I get into actually how to read what you're looking at on that circle, there's two different types of charts that you should know about. First, it's a birth chart or a natal chart, same thing. And that is the chart that is that screenshot of when you were born. It shows you where each planet was on that circle. That's who you are at your core. That never changes. That shows your strengths, your challenges, themes throughout your life. The transit chart, however, is what's happening in the sky right now. So while the planets were moving when you were born, it took that screenshot, but they kept moving. So the transit chart that you'll hear is the chart that shows where the planets are in the sky right now and what's going on. So that is the main premise of astrology. That's what most people do, is they compare their own birth chart to the transit chart, like what's going on right now and how it affects what the planets were doing when they were born. I want to just give a very brief description for birth charts in general. So you basically have the circle, and that represents different areas of your life. As planets move through the circle, they activate those different parts of your life and bring different things. So oftentimes you pull up your chart to be like, what planet is moving and where is it moving to? What part of my life is about to be activated by this planet and what does it mean? Which is basically the foundation of all that we're about to talk about. So let's get into it. So there are three main parts to reading your birth chart. There's first, if you look at the circle in your birth chart and you take away all the craziness that's on there and you just leave the circle, it is split up into 12 different pieces, and those are called houses. It's like those little pie slices that you see, but the houses are different areas of your life. So there's one for your career, one for your money and finances, there's one for your relationships, and so on. So like I said earlier, as planets move around the circle, they activate those different parts of your life, whether it be like your career or something like that. I'm gonna put a little graphic on the screen here that shows kind of what each of those pie slices are, just a few words to describe each of them. And it's important to note, as they're numbered, starting on the left, kind of going down and around, those never change. So the first house is always the first house. The 7th house is always the 7th. That order never changes. So to understand the houses a little better, I have a really good example, I think, in my chart. So I have in my 6th house, which is your day-to-day routines, your health, your work, and it also includes pets, because if you wake up at 5 a.m. every day to feed them, that's like part of your daily routine. So a lot of times pets are associated with the 6th house. But anyways, I have Jupiter in my 6th house, and Jupiter is the planet of luck and expansion and growth. It kind of expands wherever it is. So I have that in my 6th house. And that's important because for me, it has shown up in a quite literal way, because I have so much expansion in my life with pets. I have so many pets. In my life, I've had like 6 dogs, 6 cats, 8 fish, 2 birds, a few mice. Like, it's just crazy. So for me, at least, it showed up in a quite literal way that I have expansion in my house of pets. So, and for example, just to see how the houses can be affected differently, my mom has Jupiter in her 9th house, which is travel, and like that's like long distance travel, and it's like other cultures and stuff like that. And she actually moved to a different country growing up. She actually has a travel company, so she has like a big part of her life is involved with travel. So it depends. So as you can see, different houses activate different parts of your life, and I just use Jupiter as an example because it's a pretty straightforward thing that it expands wherever it is. I should note that when I say I have Jupiter in my 6th house, that's in my birth chart, so that's always a thing in my life. It's not happening for a certain period of time, it's always for me. When a planet is in your birth chart, that kind of shows your natural tendency to do things, or something that's a part of your core self. But if something is transiting, it's just for that period of time. So where the transit chart is, it's still moving, it's gonna pass through those houses. It's not gonna be there forever. But in your birth chart, they are always going to be wherever they are. So just before I wrap up the houses part of this video, because I don't want to talk too deeply on each of the houses because that would be really long, and I'll probably save more in-depth looks into the houses in other videos. But just for an example, the houses are different parts of your life, and as planets move through them, they activate those parts of your life in different ways. So now let's talk about the planets. The planets are what is happening in your chart. So where the houses were where something is happening in your life, the planets bring something, or they are something. So for an example, I said earlier that Jupiter is the planet of luck and expansion and growth. So wherever that goes, or wherever you have it in your birth chart, or if it's transiting somewhere in your chart, that is going to bring luck and growth and expansion to that part of your life. And there are planets for different things. So there's a planet for your drive and motivation, which is Mars. There's a planet for how you communicate and grow. There's a planet for how you love and stuff like that. So there's planets for everything. And I'm actually going to put up another graphic that's similar to the one for the houses that I made. That's for the planets. Just a few words if you want to screenshot it, just so you can reference it while you look at your own chart and compare things. I put underneath how long they're in each sign for, because the moon is really close to us, so it moves around us really fast. So it's only in a sign for about 2.5 days, whereas Pluto is so far away, it can be in a sign for like 20 years. Like, it will never go around the whole circle in your lifetime, which is pretty crazy, I think. So I'm going to give you a personal example in my birth chart that I think makes a lot of sense, and so that you can understand how transiting planets can affect you for a certain period of time. So the planet Uranus is the planet of sudden change. It's on the downside, it's kind of like instability, but on the bright side, it can get rid of the old to make room for the new and the good. But it's kind of like a wild card planet. It's like unexpected type of thing. And so I have Uranus in my birth chart somewhere, but I went back to see when it was transiting through my 4th house. And your 4th house is your home life, your family, your parents, your roots, kind of where you come from. And since Uranus takes about 8 years in each sign, I went back to see the exact dates that it was in my 4th house for those 8 years. And what I actually found was, to the day, that my parents got divorced in that time period, and my dad wasn't a part of my life anymore. We were moving houses twice a year, every year, so you could quite literally see that I had instability in my home life for that exact period of time. And I know that's not going to be the same for everyone, so please take that with a grain of salt, that if you have Uranus going through your 4th house, it's not going to be exactly how mine was. You could have it transiting your 4th house and have your family grow in unexpected ways, or you could be moving around a lot in the best way possible. So please don't take that my example is going to happen to you, because it's not the same for everyone. So what's interesting to me is that I had Uranus going through my 4th house at that time, and I have a younger sister who's going through the exact same life events as me, but hers was in her 11th house, which is your communities, your social groups, sort of who you surround yourself with on a day-to-day. And yes, while she was experiencing the home life instability and stuff, that's not what her chart was focused on. And actually during that time, she had a lot of instability with her friendships, and there was lots of her friends were really hard on her, really mean to her, but in the best outcome that could have happened, all of the people that they were mean to became friends, and she has these amazing friends to this day. And in a good sense, she had sudden change in her friendships because she moved across the globe to another continent and made new friendships and stuff like that. So not every outcome is a bad thing, but it's unexpected. And I still think that out with the old and in with the new is a great way to look at Uranus. That's something that I really want to emphasize on, is that it can show up in totally different ways for everyone. And that's, I think, just an example of how Uranus can affect different parts of your life depending on what house it's in, and that goes for every planet. And yeah. So with my past examples, you can see that I had Uranus, which is sudden change, moving through my 4th house, which is my home life. And for my example before, which was Jupiter and bringing me lots of pets, which is Jupiter is the planet of luck and expansion and growth. And the 6th house is where it is in my birth chart. And that is your daily routines, work, health, and pets. And these differ because while Jupiter is in my birth chart, it is always there for me. I will always be like that, just at my core. But the Uranus was a passing thing for me because it's not always in my 4th house. It was transiting through there for that time. Now we will talk about the how things happen. We talked about the what and the where. The how is the zodiac signs. The easiest way to know kind of what the signs are is the signs are like the vibe of each area of your life, or the personality to it. Just like I did with the houses and the planets, I'll put up a little graphic with a few words to explain each of the signs in a few words, just so that you can kind of understand it a little better. Okay, so you have signs on every one of your houses. And I think a good way to understand the signs based on what you've already learned so far and what I'm going to be teaching you is that I have in my birth chart the moon in my 3rd house, which if you take it literally, the moon is your emotional world, your inner world. It's who you are when no one else is around. And I have that in my 3rd house, which is how you communicate, how you grow, how you learn. And I am quite literally the most emotional person when I communicate, because almost every serious conversation that I have, I end up crying my eyes out. I don't know why, but I just do. And so I think that's quite literally a very on paper definition of that. Now, when you add the sign to that, I have Pisces in my 3rd house, and Pisces is a very dreamy sort of not seeing so clearly. It's a sort of foggy type of vibe. And I quite literally live in my head all the time. So I find that really literal. Like, I talk in my head all the time. I have my own little universe in my head. So like, for me, that's just spot on. So putting it all together with that example, the moon is your emotions. The 3rd house is communication and growth. And Pisces is really dreamy, intuitive. So everyone has the signs in different places. First, you want to look at your rising sign. Your rising sign is whatever sign starts your 1st house. And that determines where all the other signs are going to fall in your chart, because the order of the signs never change. So if you are an Aries rising and you have Aries in your first house, then you have to have Taurus in your second house. That's just the one that comes after. So it's always the same order, just in different locations. This is also why your time of birth is so important, because every day they're spinning and moving. So if you put 5 a.m. as your birth time or 2 p.m., it's going to be totally different signs, which changes the vibe for each area of your life dramatically. So one part that gets kind of confusing for some people is that when you look at signs, let's say someone says, oh, it's Leo season, or it's about to be Leo season, they normally mean the sun is going to go into Leo. So the sun is going to go into Leo for everyone. That's going to happen in the transit chart for everyone. But Leo is going to be in a different part of your chart. So where Leo might be in your second house, and the sun moving into there means you're going to have a more bright and radiant focus on your money and your self-worth and things that you value during that time. Whereas someone else might have it moving into their 9th house, and they will have a lot more focus on their travel and their philosophies and stuff like that for that period of time. Just remember that the energy will be similar because you'll have the bright and radiant vibe of Leo, and the sun will be entering that, but it's going to show up in completely different areas of your life. One last thing I want to talk about with the signs is that each sign is sort of associated with an element. So you've probably heard of water signs, fire signs, earth or air signs. Each sign falls into an element. There's 3 signs per element, and that's important just because signs that share the same element tend to have really similar qualities and stuff, but that doesn't mean they're gonna have the exact same things, but you can it's a good way of categorizing them, I suppose. The sign adds flavor to the house, basically. So if you have, for my example, how I had the moon in my 3rd house in Pisces, that's just saying that I communicate my emotions in a Pisces way, because communication is your 3rd house and your emotions is the moon, and Pisces is how I do it. So okay, and the last main thing I will talk about in this video today are aspects. And aspects are the angles that 2 planets make to each other. I know it's gonna sound crazy and super complicated, but it's not so bad. So if planets are at different angles to each other, they do different things. So they might have tension and help us grow, or some are just easy, kind of flowy energy. So the easiest aspect to understand first is a conjunction. That's when 2 planets are right on top of each other or right next to each other, and that's when their energies kind of blend together and become really strong for each other. So for example, how I said way earlier, my mom has Jupiter in her 9th house. She has a big focus on travel, and she grows and expands through travel. She has her sun literally right on top of it. And so instead of it just expanding her life in a way, it makes it the biggest focus of her life. It is how I explained earlier, how she has a travel company with it. She's moved to different countries. She has traveled the world everywhere. So it's not just that she grows through travel, it is her. That is her life. So the next aspect I will talk about is an opposition. That is when 2 planets are directly opposite of each other. And it sort of creates this push-pull energy type of thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that you're trying to balance 2 different things at once, and it might not be working out, one might be favored, that kind of thing. And I have yet another example in my birth chart. I just feel like I have a lot of very textbook examples, so I'm sorry to talk about myself so much, but I feel like it helps to understand a little better. But in my birth chart, so at my core, this will never change, I have Neptune, which is the planet of not seeing so clearly. It's your dreams, your intuition, it's kind of like Pisces, it's foggy, sort of. And I have that in my 2nd house, which is what I value, my self-worth, my money. So with just Neptune in the 2nd house, you can see I might not see so clearly my values or my self-worth or something. And almost directly opposite of that, I have Venus, which is a planet of love and peace and harmony, in my 8th house, which is really deep and intense intimacy. And it also is metaphorical death and rebirth. So you could see that as I love really deeply. Now, because these two are opposite of each other, they kind of have like a push-pull energy. So I find that quite literal in my life, because my desire to love super deeply or see the best in people can make it harder for me to see situations clearly involving like my self-worth or what I value, that kind of thing. And for me, that's quite literal, that's super accurate. So you can look at your chart and see if you have any oppositions and see kind of how that plays out based on the planet that's there, the house, and the sign. The third aspect is a square. That's a 90-degree angle. And most of the time, this is kind of something that brings up challenges in a way, but it's a really good way to grow and to get out of your comfort zone or something. So if you see a square, don't be scared. It's a good thing. It's how you grow and you expand. Next, we have a trine, and this is why I explained the elements earlier, because an easy way to tell if two planets are trining each other is if they are in the same element sign. So Aries and Sagittarius are trining each other. They just are because they're fire signs. And if you have Cancer and Scorpio, they trine each other. And trining is sort of like a helping hand energy. You can sort of see it as the signs understand each other, sort of, since they're the same element. So they just help each other move like an easy flow, sort of. Then the last aspect I will talk about today is a sextile. And sextiles are just like trines, where it's like good vibes, they work together, the planets. It's more so like an opportunity. It's not as strong as a trine, but it's like handing you the opportunity to do something, and you can take it or not. So just to summarize, you have a conjunction, which is sort of combined energy. You have a trine, which is easy flow. You have a sextile, which is opportunity. You have an opposition, which is kind of push and pull away from each other. And then you have a square, which is a grow through challenge. One thing that's worth mentioning whenever you go to check the angles on your own birth chart to see if they make angles to the transiting planets or transiting planets make angles to each other, it's worth noting that they don't have to be on the exact degree of each other. Within 5 to 10 degrees is normally pretty active for the angle, but aspects are definitely strongest at 0 degrees. So let's say you have a planet in 2 degrees of Aries, and then you have a planet in 2 degrees of Gemini. Those are sextiling each other to the exact degree. So that's a little stronger than had it been at 6 degrees of Gemini. It's going to be a little looser, if that makes sense. And don't feel like you have to memorize this, because most websites have on the chart like little lines to show you what aspects are being made and stuff like that. So you don't have to memorize that, and you can always reference by looking at the sheet that I made. Okay, so now that we've looked at most of everything that there is to reading your birth chart, let's do a practice example. So let's say that I had Mercury in my 7th house, which was Leo. So just take a second and pause the video if you want, and go back and look at the graphics and see if you can figure out what that might mean. Okay, and if you don't want to look back, that's totally fine. I'll go ahead and explain. So Mercury is the planet of communication, learning, exchanging information. And then there is the 7th house, which is relationships and partnerships. And then Leo is very confident, radiant, very bright energy. So when you put that all together, it might be that someone with Mercury in Leo in their 7th house might really enjoy expressing themselves in relationships, or they like being heard a lot. It could also be that they bring warmth through their discussions with other people. Now, let's make it a little more complicated just so you can practice. Let's say that someone had Jupiter right here, compared to the Mercury in Leo in the 7th. Now, I first want you to think about what angle is this making, or what aspect is being made here. And what might it mean to have this aspect here? So you can pause for a few moments and really think about it, go back and see what Jupiter means, and try and figure out yourself if you'd like. So if you don't want to go back, that's totally fine. I'm going to explain it now. But it is an opposition. So that is Jupiter in the 1st house, which is opposite Mercury in the 7th house. And because Jupiter expands everything that it touches, and Mercury is all about communication, it could be seen as a push and pull between listening and speaking in relationships. Okay, and just one more example, just because I know aspects can be a little confusing, I think some practice is worth it. So let's say that we put this planet right here on this chart compared to where our Mercury in Leo is. And I also specifically put the symbol and didn't say the name of the planet, so that hopefully you can go and try and figure out the planet and start to get familiarized with the symbols. Okay, and if you don't want to go back, that's fine, because I'm going to explain it now. The Mars, that is the planet, is in Aries, and it is trining the Mercury in Leo, because they are the same element, and at similar degrees, they are making a trine to each other. And because trines are easy flow of energy, Mars trining Mercury there is, they're going to work naturally together into your house of relationships and everything else affected. Okay, and before we close out, I just want to say first that one placement does not define you. If you go online and you see people say, oh my gosh, like, you're such a Cancer. People say that to me all the time. I have a bunch of planets in Cancer, but that doesn't mean that everyone with the sun in Cancer is going to be the exact same. Everyone's placements and planets and aspects and signs are all different. And where I have my sun in Cancer in my 7th house, which is my relationships, someone else might have their sun in Cancer in their 1st house, and it plays out totally differently. Whether you believe in astrology or not, I think that is still really fun and important thing to look at, because you might see a transit coming up and it might be that Jupiter is going to move into your money house, and you're like, great, maybe I'll get some money. And whether you believe in it or not, you might subconsciously start working a little harder or pick up an extra job or like whatever that might mean for you, but you might start subconsciously trying new things to make it happen. And it can be said for the opposite way too. So let's say Mars, the planet of drive and motivation and sometimes aggression, is moving into your 4th house, which is your home life, your family. You might be kind of worried that you're gonna lose your temper with your family and stuff. So it's kind of also a good reminder in the sense that you can tell yourself, okay, I need to be patient during this time, and if my family frustrates me or something, like, I just need to be a little more patient. And I think that's a good reminder whether you believe in it or not. And of course, I'm still learning too. I'm learning every day about astrology and comparing my chart to the transit chart and what's happening right now and going back. And I encourage you to do the same thing. And if there's anything that I've left out that you think is important to this, please leave a comment below so I can learn as well, because I'm doing this for myself to learn just as much as for you guys. And then the final thing is that I make little designs and little artworks and stuff on Redbubble, so if you want to go support me there, you're more than welcome to. I'm gonna leave the link in the description. And that is it. Thank you so much if you've watched this whole thing, and I really hope that it helps someone learn a little better. For me, I just struggled a lot understanding astrology to begin with. There's so many videos out there and so many terms and vocab and just so many different things that it made no sense to me. So I hope that I explain this in a way that makes sense for you. And I do plan to make more videos talking about the houses, the planets, the signs, a little bit more in depth. And I plan to talk about more upcoming transits as well, so I hope that you stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching again, and I hope I was able to help someone, and have a wonderful day. Bye!